Namaste. About the 24th April 1920, the mother gave a message in 1937, and the message is, rather than was, the anniversary of my return to Pondicherry, which was the tangible sign of the sure victory over the adverse forces. So she's speaking of return because the mother came on 29th March, which is the first time she came to Pondicherry, 1914. And as soon as she came, like the Shakti she is, she started creating the whole world. She started the new idea, honesty stores, the Arya started. So straight away she started creating a new creation. World was not ready, and we saw that the world came in the grip of the First World War, throes of the First World War. All the vital forces stooped down to ensure somehow that this doesn't happen. But as always, evil, darkness can be victorious only temporarily. It cannot be permanent. This is something we must always remember, that this, when mother was asked what is it that we should teach the children, she said one thing they must know: the certitude of truth's final victory. Satyamev jayate nanritam. Of course, this truth is that which is taking place deep within our own being, that truth. And it is bound to be victorious, it will manifest itself. But when they came together and the new creation started, straight away we see the First World War came and they were to be separated. And this separation is not just a separation of 5 years, it's a age-long story from the very origin of creation. And when we read the mother's first prayer after she leaves Pondicherry in 1915, she speaks about the harsh solitude. And one is reminded of the original separation which took place between the Lord and his Shakti, recounted so beautifully in Rig Veda, where the story, as the story goes, the Shakti of the Lord separated from him. Why? Because the one wanted to become many. So the task of making many out of the one was given to the Shakti. That's we see is repeated in life and creation itself. So she separated and went further and further away to create the many, to put them in a nice, in a womb of darkness from where they will start their journey back. And there came a time when she was as if in a state of complete oblivion and unconsciousness. This is the great sacrifice of the world mother, which Sri Aurobindo speaks of in Savitri. On the other hand, void of Shakti, what happened to Brahman? She is called as Brahmajaya. So Brahmajaya became Bhimajaya, the heavy, dark matter. That's how the name comes. Or to put it another way, Gauri became Kali. Mahagauri became Kali in the dark obscurity of matter. So what happened to Brahman? Brahman also became Shunyam. So you see, those who try to go away from the manifestation, discarding Shakti and the manifestation and Prakriti, they enter into Shunyam. Because that status of the one became because he was void of the Shakti. And then the return started, and in the return, the gods, the first god, the god who notices where she has gone is Varuna, and it is Soma who goes, Ananda, which is there in creation, which always pulls us upward. See, how it operates is that if we are not experiencing the delight of creation, that means actually we are not progressing. Mother put it very interestingly. She said, happiness is not the goal of creation. The goal is progress. And if you progress, then you get happiness. So it is this Ananda which started pulling things upward. And it's the nature of Ananda too. It's ever dissatisfied, playful, youthful. So it keeps pulling us upward and upward and upward. And if we stop progressing, become static, then we experience that state in which Ananda changes into pleasure, pain, suffering, and ultimately a state of complete dullness, a state of lack of all feelings, indifference, monotone. So this Ananda began to invite her, and step by step he started leading the Shakti upward. And as she was coming, because she is after all the Shakti, she started creating. So she created this material world in which also we see that drop of Ananda. That's why even in pure material creation we can experience that joy. It's very strange. Why do material images, pictures, even sometimes photographs they give us joy because it is there inside it. And then, step by step, Shakti builds the worlds and she begins to return. So those steps we know are the evolutionary steps. First matter, then after creating this material universe, he expands. So we have the vital worlds and expands into the full cosmic consciousness. But from there she must go still further. So there comes mind which must shoot beyond the cosmic into the transcendent. So these are the three steps of the Shakti: the individual, the cosmic, and the transcendent. And in the process, we see the evolutionary process. So it is only at the level of the mind that there is a possibility of transcending itself. Mind has this possibility of going beyond itself into the utter transcendent. So this is the story of the return. And why this is called as victory? Because opponent of this return means once again Brahman and the Shakti are joined together. She becomes once again Brahmajaya, the fair mother, the beautiful mother, by his side. And this, the inconscient where the Shakti had gone, doesn't want. So Ravana doesn't want Sita to go back to Rama, if you want to take the Ramayana story. Why would he? He knows that if Sita is here, he is safe. And he doesn't realize that the very thing that, saves you is the very power that slays you, if you do not know how to hold it. So he tries to capture Sita by force, whereas Sita could have been held back with love. But Ravana doesn't know. So in the process, step by step, we see that Shakti, just her presence there, and he's not able to contain it. So the entire forces that separate her from her Lord, they are destroyed. So what really are these adverse forces that Mother is speaking about? Adverse forces, essentially, if we go to the root, they are forces which keep us away from the divine, in one simple word. How do they keep us away from the divine? They create depression. With depression, we have no energy, we don't want to go further, we don't have the urge to progress. Or they create a state of despair on the brink. That it's better to die, it's no use, living at all. Or they create a state of doubt which clouds the mind completely. Or they create the sense of unfitness. How can you go to the divine? Somebody once asked that, I feel I'm not pure enough to go to the divine. I said, if you are pure enough, you don't need to go to the divine. And who can be pure enough, frankly speaking? It's precisely because we are impure enough that we need to go to the divine. So this, they will give all kinds of suggestions. Guilt, depression is their characteristic way of action. Or anger, excitement, everything that clouds us and therefore makes us sink into the narrow hole. And their pakka instrument, 100% instrument is the ego. Mr. Ego. So they press upon the ego, they bring in the forces of nature which attack us, and then at the end they declare that you are no good, you are unfit, and so one sinks into a hole and they keep us away. Now, as far as this is between the human consciousness and the divine, it's easier to take care. The divine can override if there is one little opening, one little call, little slight opening to the grace. He says they cannot stand. One drop of true love and they can vanish. But the problem is much deeper, and that problem is, as we see also in Savitri, material world and the divine. There is a big gulf. All manifestation is on the basis of matter. And these forces create an impossible seeming gulf between matter, material creation, and the divine. That's why we see that till date, all spiritual movements keep on, most of them, there are hints here and there, but most of them say that if you want this worldly life, material life, then you have to abandon the quest for the spiritual life. And if you want the spiritual life, then you have to leave worldly life. The two are regarded as opponents and antagonists. And it is true that this is the appearance. But you see, when people oppose each other, it is also because they are attracted to each other. They deeply love each other. But the only way they know to engage is through this kind of mutual opposition. After all, what is opposition? It's a wrestle. Can you wrestle without really holding the hands and touching the hands, throwing off sometime this way and at other time other way? So this is the wrestle which is going on between the divine and this material existence. So her coming back, return of the mother finally, means that this process which had started in the origin, the story which began with the Brahmajaya going and becoming Bhimajaya, becoming this obscure matter. This story has reached its grand finale. So, once this happens, her union with the divine, with the Lord and His Shakti, in material embodiments, we can say the mother and Sri Aurobindo, marks the beginning of a new creation. Because up till now, the creation that was there was invariably separated from the divine. Anything taking birth in matter, confining itself to matter, meant that by the very fact you are born in matter, at most your consciousness can escape and liberate itself with great effort because you are in the grip of matter. But matter itself uniting with the divine is an impossibility. But now their coming together means that a new creation is destined to appear upon earth, in which there will be materially the embodiments. Matter itself will be transformed in such a way that it will no more be prone to any kind of separation with the Lord. So this is a redemption of material creation, which is described in, of course, the Bible also, in different ways, in different kinds of spiritual literature, where the divine contact ultimately redeems matter. And it is for this that we see that the mother and Sri Aurobindo have been laboring since their coming together finally. Subsequently, when after 29th February 1956, when this tangible sign turned into a certitude, the mother gave another very interesting message. So, first she gave the message, the anniversary of my return to Pondicherry, which was the tangible sign of the sure victory over the adverse forces. So, it was the sign. And the sign changes into a certitude. And there she said on 24th April 1956, the manifestation of the supramental upon earth is no more a promise but a living fact, a reality. So 1920 was a clear sign, but the victory takes place in 1956. It is at work here, and one day will come when the most blind, the most unconscious, even the most unwilling shall be obliged to recognize it. Why? Because we are blind because of the fact that we enter into matter and we assume a material body. Now this body itself will be able to recognize the divine presence and change. And then she said something very interesting. I am speaking of a supramental manifestation evident to all. Even the most ignorant, as the human manifestation was evident to all when it happened to all those who aspire. She is making it very clear, this manifestation will one day be evident even to the most ignorant human being. Because this is the question often asked. The question is that, well, tangible sign of sure victory and the supramental manifestation, they appear all words. Where is it? Where is it? So we can take one of the two approaches. One is wait and watch, and just as chimpanzees suddenly saw human beings appear, but the bus is gone. You can only see it happening. You can participate. You will see a new species, a new creation rising right in front of you. But you will feel that you have lost that time. Other is to develop oneself because the new creation is there in a subtle body, in a subtle frame, in some dimension of consciousness. To put a more language consistent with physics today, it is there in some dimension, and we can awaken and rise to that dimension. We can try to and consciously participate in bridging our material body, our material creation with the divine. That way we can participate in it. So these are one of the two, because she has said very clearly it will be visible just as human beings when they appeared were visible to others. Already in a sense this has become visible, not in terms of the material body but in terms of consciousness. You can see those, it's a feel that you get very clearly that there is something like a new species emerging out of the old, which can understand the old and knows that this is a dated thing. I'm not talking of the fashionable new things, but it knows that the ways are very different. But the old cannot understand this new creation. Like the human being could understand the chimpanzee, but the chimpanzee cannot understand the human. So it is already emerging in terms of consciousness based upon this material body. It is beginning to become evident. But even when the new body will come, then it will be evident to everybody. And she says, wait. So what we have to do while we wait, open yourself to the new light that has dawned upon earth, and a luminous path will spread in front of you. How to open to the new light? Come out of the old lamps. What are the old lamps? All the voices that tell us that no, it cannot be. First thing is that what is that new light? Something which has never happened till date, but something which we always aspire for, which humanity has waited for. That's why she says humanity has waited for it for thousands of years. See that one line in Savitri, book 1, Canto 3. A world's desire compelled her mortal birth. So humanity has always desired, wanted it, but it has never happened. But now is the time when it is happening, and if we can put all our energies in that direction, that would be wonderful. So on 24th April 1956, he gave a very interesting message. People often ask, when will it happen? How will it happen? She says, without care for time, without fear for space, surging out, purified from the flames of the ordeal. So, ordeal will be there. She speaks about this preparation process, purification process. Even to receive the mind, the human consciousness has to be molded and made ready. So, to receive the supramental consciousness, the new consciousness, the body, mind, life, heart have to be prepared. So, it has to go through an ordeal. She says, doesn't matter. Go through the ordeal. We shall fly without stop towards the realization of our goal, the supramental victory. So, this victory is the victory over matter. And since everything upon earth is based on matter, so this victory would start at several levels. Victory over the mind which is immersed out of matter. Means it changes into a mind of light. That's what the mother spoke about, Sri Aurobindo spoke about. This heart which beats within the cage of matter, this life force which is tied to matter and its pursuit. What does it mean? Normally our emotions are tied to our immediate material surroundings and people with whom we are connected physically. But automatically we see that love in man is stretching beyond these boundaries. It's wanting to bring in a new form, new dimension, new aspect. Life energy going around material things, my bodily life, my vital existence, that's it. But this life energy must suddenly, by the touch of the supramental, grow luminous and seek for things. That energy which is neither exhausted and which is given to us to manifest the divine will upon earth. And finally, this body itself. So she says, without care for time, without fear for space, surging out purified from the flames of the ordeal. Now, we need not go through the ordeal. Ordeal is if we do not awaken the flame of tapasya. There are two ways of purifying oneself. One is yoga. It's a conscious process. So you go through internal concentration of dynamic will upon the goal. The other is through roga. And roga comes via bhoga. So one is yoga, conscious. If you don't want to do yoga, still it will be done. So people take it very nicely. Oh, then it's very fine, we'll not do anything. All right. So we can do bhoga, right? Divine says, any which way you go, I'll meet you. At some point, I'll meet you. At some point, maybe, Lord, what is this human body? I misused it, abused it. Now it is full of roga. Do something about it. So you'll say, now do yoga? Okay, fine. No choice left. So we have two options. One is to go through the tapasya needed and do it gladly. Then it becomes very easy, the sunlit path. Surrender. Surrender also is a kind of tapasya. Surrender means that I'll listen only to the divine and no other. So very simply, surrender means this. If I surrender to somebody, it means now I am going to obey that person. I can't say I have surrendered to you, but I'll do my will. So he'll say, okay, then you better be free. Surrender implies that now I'll no more listen to the voices of my ego and desire, but listen only to the divine. It's very difficult. It's very exacting. Painstaking in details. Central surrender is easy, that my life is for you. I'll work for you, I'll live for you. That is easy. But when this surrender begins to manifest in details of life, where we discover there are so many activities, so many movements which are moved by self will. So they all have to be slowly tuned, and that creates the ordeal. So, one is that we go through either a conscious, willing, glad surrender, or else that sacrifice is imposed upon us, and ultimately we go through that whatever ordeal is required and we are purified. But these are the two options left before man. And finally, something very interesting, she said. Such an ardent faith would be needed. The victory has been won, but we can't see it. Except with the eye of faith and the flame of aspiration. So, what is needed, she knows, because they have prepared something thousands of years ahead. They have said, Mother and Sri Aurobindo have said very clearly. They never said that, suddenly one day you all will wake up and see your body is transformed and, you have become Superman or super yogis. They said it will take time. 300 years, 1000 years. She gave example of human beings when the mind manifested. 8 or 9 subspecies came between the first Vanara, the animal man, monkey man, and the human being as we find today. And then even as we find today, and modern humanity has taken 1,000,000 years. So even when you compress it, 1000 years is nothing, but she said wait for 1,000 years for the new species to manifest. And a few hundred years for the supramental manifestation to become evident. So what do we do when we wait? We have faith, we aspire, and we endure. And if we are not ready for it, because we are trained to fast food restaurants, go there, give a money, get McDonald's. Divine will say, excuse me, I am a bit old-fashioned. So like in ancient India, mothers used to cook on the nice chula, light up the flame, and slow cooking, but it's very nice, very tasty. Said, that's what my business is. I don't do McDonald's and KFC. So, we have this option. If we want something like a quick, well, there is nothing like that. What can be created in a jiffy also vanishes like that. So, that is what the vital world creates. It'll give all kinds of suggestions. Oh, this is the new creation. This is the new consciousness. Because it wants man to be distracted. But we have to remember that this is a passage, and the passage may bring its own share of pain, and we should not deter from that. Rather, we should have faith and endurance. Such an ardent faith would be needed. You see, the force is so active. And one of the things he says is lies that have gone on for years are becoming visible. What is it doing? Tearing off every mask. Very painful. You're so used to wear a mask. All masks are being ripped off because the force is active. Such a force of truth would be needed, a force that would be great enough to overcome all that. The mixture is everywhere. For me, victory is certain, but I don't know if it's tomorrow or I don't know what road we will take to get there. Victory is certain, that's obvious. But what road are we going to take to get there? And it very much depends on our individual position. That's what they don't understand. We must cling so tightly to the truth that nothing can touch us. It always comes back to the same thing. What you will, Lord, what you will. But that has become formidable. And as an afternote, we can close with exactly what we saw in the last 2 years. Everybody was getting ready to preparing to celebrate the 100th year of the Mother's final coming. The Mother's devotees and disciples, we'll do this, we'll arrange this program and that program. But there was another thing round the corner which the Divine Shakti was. She has come to meet the Lord. And Lord's 150th anniversary is coming. So what did she say? Are you people ready? Forget about my final coming. Are you ready for the Lord? And we see that the last 2 years, she has made sure that we are being made ready. Isn't it very interesting that 24th April 2020, we missed the anniversary darshan. That's what we were waiting for. Exactly 2 years have passed. And now 24th April 2022, we are going to have the darshan. What was the Shakti doing? The Divine Mother said, I have come. But what is this state? You still believe it dated things. This world is still so full of lies, so full of hypocrisies and falsehoods. If you look at 2 years, individuals, men, countries, continents have been shaken up. And all that was buried inside the human consciousness, fear, greed, everything has surged up. They are the adverse force. They do not want the victory to be won. But those who stand by their faith are they who stand. Very beautifully Sri Aurobindo says, the hour of God. Mother says, when the old bases are shaken, it is the hour of God. And each insincerity of nature, once a defense against the eye of the master, now becomes a gap in the armor and it invites a blow. So all this was happening last 2 years. And then she says, but they who can stand on the truth of their purpose, they will stand. One has to hold on. Take it as a purification process. Just stay firm with faith and aspiration. And the victory has been won. It will begin to manifest. It is beginning to manifest. There are those who can actually experience how the victory is manifesting in different layers of an individual, of countries, and of course of earth itself. Namaste.